Obviously, we see from the book your great admiration and respect for Walt Disney. Why do you hold him in such high regard?
I think Walt Disney is probably the master storyteller, and of recent generations. I mean, he is the best at telling a story and doing it with detail and style and a class and a dignity. As a preacher, I believe it's one of my jobs to tell the greatest story ever told. And yet, when you look for cultural examples of how to tell a good story, it's always Walt Disney or the Disney company that seems to beat everybody else at telling the story. And so for me, as a preacher, I consider my job to be someone who's supposed to tell the story. And so when I want to model after folks, it may not be preachers that I'm trying to model after. I'm just trying to figure out the dynamics of what does it take to tell the story well. Walt Disney is the guy that, for me, has always been that model of how do you tell a story and tell it so well that people remember it and talk about it for years. Because don't you remember Disney movies from when you were a little kid?
Yes.
And they become a part of just who you are. You never forget them. You want to see them again. When they're re-released, you think, oh, I've seen that, and you remember moments and they make you laugh. Those stories last. That's the kind of story that I think that as a preacher, I want to tell. I want to tell the things that people will remember and talk about for a long time.
So how did you do the research on Walt Disney?
I probably have an addiction to Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. I have a library, an extensive library of material about the life of Walt Disney himself, the creation of the parks, and also, what kind of the behind the scenes, what happens in the parks, how they operate, how the leaders work in the parks even today. A lot of the books are books that were put out by the Disney company, Disney Editions and Hyperion and their publishing houses. But then also, I have a lot of the unauthorized stories of Disney, because one of the things I wanted to do in understanding his life and his background was hear the stuff that they wanted to say, and then stuff that other people have said. Some of it's always not real flattering, but like any leader or storyteller, I mean, there's flaws. And so, I mean, I took all that information, and I probably have close to 100 books that specifically deal with that topic, and those are the books that I read and kind of came up with that background story that I needed to kind of drive the novel forward.
Well, it certainly sounds like you did your homework.
I did, and yes, and I own a lot of books now too. Yeah.